Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Miss Gooding, and I am here to talk to you a little bit about the Battle of the Somme, which was a 4-month-long battle during World War I. Specifically, the Battle of the Somme took place in between July 1st of 1916 and November 18th of 1916. What's really important for you guys to remember is that when the war itself began in 1914, Europeans felt that it would probably be a fairly quick war. It would be over soon. And that was not the case. That this war itself went from 1914 all the way until 1918. But the Battle of the Somme is one that I want to talk about specifically because it was such a huge battle. And the battle itself not only lasted for 4 months, but it also claimed about a million lives. The Battle of the Somme was actually the largest on the Western Front, and I will show you a picture of the Western Front in just a second. But again, it started on July 1st, 1916, when British and French forces actually attacked the German lines in northern France. So I'm going to go to this map here and show you. Here is the Western Front. And on one side, on the left-hand side or the west side, you have France and the Allied powers trying to move east. And then on the right-hand side or the east side, you have Germany and the Central Powers trying to push west against each other. So really, this line is a bunch of fortified trenches. And I'll get to trench warfare in a second, but basically they're trying to move the enemy one way or the other. Okay, and they're using trench warfare in order to do this. So I'm going to back up again to this picture and talk a little bit about trench warfare. So this is a picture of a British trench at the Battle of the Somme. You can see that it's, in some places they're more shallow than others, but this one it looks to be about maybe 12 feet. And they are a system of pathways, basically. And so you have some main trenches where the battles, may be fought, but you also have communication trenches that connect some of these more main trenches. One thing that a lot of the soldiers did was they fortified the trenches with barbed wire, and so there were miles and miles of barbed wire up and over these trenches, just for added protection. So again, here is the map of the Western Front, and here's the River Somme. And so this battle started in this area. And again, it was the largest on the Western Front, and it was when the British and French forces attacked the German lines in northern France, so in this area up here. The Allies decided to start there because they hoped to break through the German lines and actually bring a quick end to the war itself, but they didn't succeed, and unfortunately the Battle of the Somme raged for 4 months. And it is important to mention, though, that there were in this battle 420,000 British deaths, 200,000 French deaths, and 500,000 German deaths. It was a very, very significant, horrific battle. Trench warfare tactics were really, really deadly. So the British commanders often used a standard trench warfare tactic when they launched offensive. So when they were going on the offensive or trying to attack the Central Powers, they would first shell the enemy trenches heavily with artillery. So either cannons or grenades or guns of some sort. And then they would send thousands of British and French soldiers up and over the top of these trenches. So first they would fire, and then they would have these soldiers go up and over these trenches and run through no man's land toward the enemy. Kind of scary if you ask me. So here is a picture of the British artillery shelling the enemies in 1916, and then here's more of an aerial view of the no man's land. Technology really did impact the death toll in World War I, and especially in the Battle of the Somme. So the military tactics that were used were extremely costly in the face of all of these new weapons. So thousands of British and French soldiers were slaughtered with machine guns, flamethrowers, grenades, a lot of times when they crossed no man's land. And also thousands were killed in the trenches themselves too, as both sides would launch heavy artillery fire into the trenches, and also they used a lot of chemical weapons, including chlorine and mustard gas that would get stuck down into the trenches and kill lots of soldiers all at once as well. So this was also a new, the tanks were also introduced, and they were fairly well received, especially because of how many battles took place in no man's land, and it gave the soldiers in the tanks quite a bit of protection in no man's land. So outcomes of the Battle of the Somme. So in the end, Allied forces, they only gained a small amount of territory for all of the carnage suffered during the Battle of the Somme, and they really did not move very far. You can see that here is the main line. So it looks to me like the Western Front. And remember that the Allied forces are pushing toward the east, and the other side, so the Central Powers are actually trying to push toward the west. And so you have here July 1st, here's the line, and then you see this dotted line July 14th, and then you have September 15th here, and you also have November 19th here, and here is the scale for a mile. And so small gains, you guys, over many, many, many weeks and months.